It was 11:15 on a Tuesday night when Sienna finally said the thing she had been holding in her chest for 7 months. "I want a baby, Raff. I'm 27. I've been with you for 2 years. We need to talk about what this actually is." Raff put his glass down, not dramatically, just carefully, the way he did everything. He looked at her across the kitchen island and said, "We have talked about it, more than once. Talking about it isn't the same as agreeing to it." "I know, I've never said I agreed to it." Sienna laughed, the short, hollow kind. "So what have the last 2 years been then?" "Real," he said. "Genuinely real. I told you from the beginning I didn't want to be exclusive. I didn't want." "You told me that, on our second date. You were also 3 glasses of wine in, and we were in the middle of a parking lot." "I still meant it." "I thought you'd change." The sentence landed between them like something dropped from a height. Raff looked at her for a long moment. "Sienna, I never told you I would." She turned away from him. She looked out the window at the Austin street below, the same street she had looked at from this window 100 times over 2 years, making herself believe that the view would eventually include a future she could see herself in. It didn't. She knew it didn't. She had known for months. The argument was not the beginning of the end. It was her finally deciding to stop pretending otherwise. This is the story of Sienna and Rafferty, 2 people who loved each other and wanted completely different things from the love. If you're just finding this story, welcome to Breakup Diaries. Last chapter opened with the argument. Tonight we go back to where it started, to the parking lot, to the conversations Sienna heard and chose to file under, things that will change. Sienna met Rafferty at a housewarming party in East Austin on a Saturday in October. He was talking to someone across the room when she noticed him, not because he was the loudest person there, but because he wasn't. He was the kind of man who listened like he meant it. She would later understand that this was both his best quality and the thing that made everything harder. Their first date was coffee that stretched into dinner. Second date was a rooftop bar where they talked until the staff started stacking chairs. Walking to their cars at midnight, Raff stopped beside his truck and said it plainly, the way he said most things. "I want to keep seeing you. I need you to know I'm not looking for anything exclusive right now. I'm not in a place for that." Sienna heard the words. She did. She just looked at this man, warm, honest, funny in the specific dry way she liked, and thought what she would never admit to Priya until much later. That's what they all say. She said, "That's okay, let's just see where it goes." She meant it when she said it. She was also 25 years old and completely certain, in the way you are certain about things at 25, that where it went would be somewhere she wanted to be. It went exactly where he said it would. She had just not been listening to the destination, only to the sound of his voice saying he wanted to keep seeing her. Have you ever heard something clearly and chosen to file it away under, "That will change"? Drop your honest answer below. Because what Sienna does over the next 2 years, the negotiations she has with herself, the goalposts she moves, is the part of this story nobody talks about. Subscribe and hit the bell, because the moment she realizes Raff never stopped being exactly who he said he was is coming, and it lands harder than any betrayal. Bell. The first 6 months, Sienna told herself she was just enjoying something casual, which was true, she was. The second 6 months, she told herself it was getting more serious, she could feel it was. They had a drawer at each other's places. They spent most weekends together. He introduced her to his sister. Those were not casual relationship things. Those were something more things. She kept that list in her head like evidence. The third 6 months, she stopped asking what they were. Not because she had an answer, because she was afraid to hear the one she would get. And somewhere in the fourth 6 months, she started wanting a baby. Not in an abstract future someday way. In the specific, physical, this is happening in my body way that visits women in their late 20s sometimes and does not leave politely. She went to her friend Priya's baby shower in March and held a 4-week-old named Arlo for 11 minutes and drove home crying in a way she could not fully explain and did not try to. She did not tell Raff about the baby shower. She did not tell him about the drive home. She told herself she would bring it up when the time was right. She was still waiting for the right time 7 months later when the argument happened. This is the thing about moving your own goalposts. Nobody forces you. Nobody asks you to. You do it yourself, quietly, in the margins of your own life, because the alternative, saying out loud what you actually need and hearing someone tell you they cannot give it, feels worse than the waiting. Until it doesn't. Until 11:15 on a Tuesday. What Sienna didn't know was that Raff had not been waiting for the right time. He had been waiting for her to ask. He had been waiting for exactly this conversation for over a year, dreading it, knowing it was coming, watching her move her goalposts, and not knowing how to tell her that he could see her doing it without making her feel worse. He was not a man without feelings. He was a man who had said his truth on date 2 and had been living with the weight of it ever since. The morning after the argument, Raff called his older brother Sian and told him what happened. Sian asked him one question: "Do you love her?" Raff said yes without pausing. "Then what's the actual problem?" And Raff tried to explain the thing he had never fully explained to Sienna, not because he was hiding it, but because it was hard to say without sounding like an excuse. His parents had married at 24. His father had proposed because that was what you did, because she was the right woman, and the time was right and love was reason enough. They had built a life that looked, from the outside, like everything it was supposed to be. And from the inside of a house where two people stayed together, because they had committed to staying, not because they had chosen each day to be there. It looked like a very expensive, very polished form of quiet desperation. Raff had watched his father be a good man in a wrong life for 30 years. He had decided, early and quietly, that he would rather be honest about what he could offer than build something that looked right from the street. What he had not fully worked out, what Sian pointed out in the flat older brother way that had always cut through him, was that his fear of his parents' marriage had become its own kind of cage. He was so committed to not trapping anyone that he had spent 2 years with a woman who loved him, refusing to ask himself the question he was most afraid to answer. Did he want the thing he was running from, not his parents' version of it, but his own? He didn't know. That was the honest answer. He genuinely didn't know. He came on a Thursday evening. She made tea neither of them drank. They sat on the sofa, not close, not far, the distance of two people who know this is important and are treating it carefully. Raff told her about his parents. He told her about his father. He told her about the decision he had made at 22 watching a marriage that worked on paper and nowhere else. He told her that open wasn't about wanting other people. It was about not wanting to be the reason someone stayed in something they had outgrown. "I was afraid," he said. "I've been afraid this whole time that if I gave you a label and a timeline, I'd be doing to you what my dad did to my mum, locking you into something because love felt like reason enough." Sienna listened to every word. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I understand all of that. I really do, and it doesn't change what I need. I know. I'm 27. I want to get married. I want children, not someday in the next few years. That's not something I can negotiate down anymore." "I know," he said again. And the way he said it, not defensively, not with apology, just with the quiet acknowledgement of a man who has always known this moment was coming, was the most heartbreaking version of "I know" she had ever heard. They sat there for another hour. They talked about everything they had been to each other. They cried, both of them, in the unself-conscious way that only happens when something is genuinely over and both people know it. Then he left, and she sat in the quiet of her apartment and finally let herself grieve it properly. Sienna did not date for 5 months after Raff. Not because she was broken, she wasn't, not exactly, but because she had something to figure out before she brought herself to someone new. She needed to understand how she had spent 2 years with a man who told her the truth on date 2 and arrived at year 2 still surprised by it. She talked about it in therapy. She talked about it with Priya over more wine than was probably necessary. She wrote about it in a journal she kept beside her bed and filled faster than she expected. What she worked out slowly was this: she had not been deceived, she had been hopeful. And hope, when it is directed at changing a person rather than understanding them, is not love. It is a project. And she had been running a project on Raff for 2 years without telling either of them. He texted her on her birthday just, "Happy birthday, Sienna. Hope this year is everything." She smiled at it for a long time. Then she put her phone down and went to meet Priya for dinner. 8 months later, she met someone at a work event. On their second date, he said, unprompted, over pasta, completely unbothered by the weight of it, "I really want a family eventually." Like, genuinely. "Is that a weird thing to say?" She laughed. She said it wasn't. She thought about a parking lot in East Austin 3 years earlier and a sentence she had chosen not to hear. She heard this one, completely, without filing it anywhere. Some things you have to learn by doing wrong once. That doesn't make the doing wrong any less real. It just means you finally know what you're listening for. Before you go, the question this story leaves us with is one I don't have a clean answer to. When someone tells you who they are on date 2, and you choose to believe they'll become someone different, who is responsible for what comes next? Is it on him for staying while she hoped? Is it on her for hoping while he stayed? Or is it just 2 people who loved each other genuinely and wanted different things, and stayed a little too long inside something that was quietly over? Drop your answer below. This is Breakup Diaries. See you in the next one.